Romans versus Germanic tribes, a clash of civilizations. The confrontation between the Romans and the Germanic tribes was one of the defining struggles of antiquity. It was not merely a military conflict but a clash of two radically different ways of life. While Rome represented centralized governance, urbanization, and disciplined military power, the Germanic tribes embodied decentralized independence, adaptability, and guerrilla warfare. This prolonged contest shaped the boundaries, cultures, and political trajectories of Europe. Roman society and military power. The Roman system. Rome was an organized and centralized state, with an economy and governance system built on cities, roads, and an extensive bureaucracy. The Roman legions were the most professional and disciplined military force of the ancient world, characterized by their rigorous training, advanced equipment, and ability to adapt to diverse terrains and enemies. Goals in Germania. Rome aimed to expand its territory east of the Rhine, secure its northern frontier, and incorporate Germania into the empire as it had done with Gaul. The Romans sought to impose taxation, establish Roman law, and create infrastructure to assimilate the Germanic tribes into their imperial framework. Germanic tribal society and resistance. The Germanic way of life. The Germanic tribes were decentralized, consisting of loosely affiliated clans led by chieftains. Their social structure emphasized loyalty to kin and tribe over allegiance to centralized authority. They lived in scattered villages and relied on agriculture, hunting, and raiding for their livelihood. Their independence and deep connection to their land fueled their fierce resistance to Roman domination. Military tactics. The Germanic tribes excelled in guerrilla warfare, ambushes, and hit-and-run tactics, exploiting the dense forests and swamps of Germania to their advantage. Their warriors were less disciplined than Roman soldiers but made up for it with mobility, individual bravery, and intimate knowledge of the terrain. Major conflicts between Rome and the Germanic tribes. 1. Early encounters. Caesar's campaigns, 58 to 50 BCE, Julius Caesar's conquest of Gaul brought Rome into contact with the Germanic tribes, particularly the Suebi under Ariovistus. Caesar's victory pushed the tribes back across the Rhine but introduced Rome to the challenges of Germanic resistance. Drusus and Tiberius expeditions, 12 BCE, 9 BCE, Rome launched a series of campaigns to conquer Germania east of the Rhine, with Drusus reaching as far as the Elbe. These efforts laid the groundwork for Roman influence but highlighted the logistical difficulties of sustaining control in the region. 2. The Battle of the Teutoburg Forest, 9c. The ambush. Arminius, a Cherusci chieftain and former Roman auxiliary, united the tribes and lured Varus legions into a trap. Over several days, the tribes annihilated 3 Roman legions in the dense forests of Germania. Impact. This defeat marked the end of Rome's expansion east of the Rhine and forced the empire to focus on fortifying its northern frontier. 3. Germanicus retaliatory campaigns, 14 to 16c. Germanicus launched punitive expeditions to avenge the Teutoburg defeat, recovering 2 of the lost legionary standards and defeating Arminius in several battles. However, these campaigns failed to establish lasting control over Germania. 4. The Marcomannic Wars, 166 to 180 c. During the reign of Marcus Aurelius, Germanic tribes like the Marcomanni and Quadi launched large-scale invasions into Roman territory. Rome countered with military campaigns that stabilized the Danube frontier but at great cost. 5. The migration period, 4th to 5th centuries c. Pressured by the Huns, Germanic tribes such as the Goths, Vandals, and Franks migrated into Roman territory. These migrations culminated in events like the sack of Rome, 410 CE by the Visigoths, and the eventual fall of the Western Roman Empire in 476 CE. Strengths and weaknesses of the Romans and Germanic tribes. Strengths of Rome. Military discipline. The Roman legions were unmatched in training, organization, and battlefield tactics, capable of adapting to diverse threats. Engineering prowess. Roman engineers built roads, bridges, and fortifications that facilitated troop movements and logistics. Cultural integration. Rome's ability to assimilate conquered peoples through Romanization, laws, language, infrastructure, was a key element of its imperial success. Weaknesses of Rome. Overextension. Rome's vast borders stretched its resources thin, making it difficult to sustain prolonged campaigns in Germania. Dependence on centralized authority. Roman success often relied on strong leadership, and weak or indecisive emperors hampered military effectiveness. Difficulty adapting to guerrilla warfare. The Roman legions were vulnerable in dense forests and swamps, where traditional formations and strategies were less effective. Strengths of the Germanic tribes. Knowledge of terrain. The tribes used their familiarity with Germania's dense forests and challenging terrain to ambush and evade Roman forces. Flexibility and mobility. Unlike the Roman legions, Germanic warriors were not bound by rigid formations, allowing them to adapt quickly during battles. Unity in resistance. When faced with a common enemy, tribes like the Cherusci, Marcomanni, and Goths demonstrated the ability to unite against Rome. Weaknesses of the Germanic tribes. Lack of centralized authority. The tribes' independence made long-term alliances difficult, as internal rivalries often undermined collective efforts. Inferior equipment and discipline. Germanic warriors lacked the standardized equipment and training of Roman soldiers, putting them at a disadvantage in open battles. Susceptibility to Roman diplomacy. Rome often exploited tribal divisions, forming temporary alliances to weaken united resistance. Outcomes and legacy. 1. The Rhine-Danube frontier. The Roman-Germanic wars established the Rhine and Danube rivers as enduring cultural and political boundaries between the Roman Empire and the Germanic world. These frontiers became heavily fortified, symbolizing both Rome's strength and its limitations. 2. The fall of the Western Roman Empire. The prolonged conflict with Germanic tribes drained Rome's resources and destabilized its frontier provinces. Germanic tribes like the Visigoths, Vandals, and Franks eventually became key players in the collapse of the Western Roman Empire, establishing their own kingdoms in its former territories. 3. Cultural exchange. Despite their resistance, the Germanic tribes adopted many aspects of Roman culture, including Christianity, law, and governance. This blending of traditions created the foundations of medieval Europe. 4. The myth of Germania. The Germanic tribes' defiance of Rome became a symbol of freedom and resistance, celebrated in later European history as a defining moment in the struggle for independence against centralized authority. Conclusion: a defining struggle. The continuing influence of the Roman-Germanic struggle. The long confrontation between Rome and the Germanic tribes had profound consequences that extended far beyond the immediate outcomes of battles. Its effects shaped the political and cultural identity of Europe and created lasting legacies that influenced the development of nations, governance, and military traditions. Below, we delve deeper into the enduring significance of the Roman-Germanic struggle. 1. The transformation of warfare. The military dynamics of the Roman-Germanic wars introduced new strategies and influenced the evolution of European military traditions. Roman adaptations. Guerrilla countermeasures. The guerrilla tactics employed by the Germanic tribes, especially in dense forests like those of Teutoburg, forced Roman commanders to adapt by improving reconnaissance and using lighter, more flexible units. Fortified borders. After the failure to conquer Germania, Rome invested heavily in fortifications along the Rhine and Danube, introducing a model for border defense that would inspire medieval castles and later European fortifications. Germanic evolution. Integration of Roman techniques. Germanic warriors learned from Rome's use of discipline and formations. Over time, tribes such as the Franks adopted Roman military organization, creating the armored cavalry that dominated medieval Europe. Rise of heavy infantry. Influenced by Roman models, Germanic forces gradually evolved from loosely organized warbands into more cohesive armies capable of challenging Rome directly. 2. The division of Europe. The Rhine and Danube rivers, established as the frontiers between Rome and Germania, became enduring political and cultural divides. Cultural duality. Romanized West. The areas west of the Rhine became Romanized, developing urban centers, infrastructure, and Latin-based languages. Independent Germania. East of the Rhine, the Germanic tribes retained their independence and cultural distinctiveness, which persisted into the Middle Ages. Enduring fault lines. The division between the Roman and Germanic spheres foreshadowed later political and cultural divisions in Europe, including the distinctions between Romance and Germanic languages and the separation of Western and Central Europe. 3. The fall of Rome and the rise of Germanic kingdoms. The inability of Rome to fully subjugate Germania contributed to the eventual decline of the Western Roman Empire and the rise of Germanic-led successor states. Germanic migration and integration. Pressure from the Huns. By the 4th and 5th centuries CE, the arrival of the Huns pushed Germanic tribes such as the Goths, Vandals, and Burgundians into Roman territory. Federati agreements. Rome increasingly relied on Germanic tribes as allies, federati, granting them land in exchange for military service. This arrangement blurred the lines between Roman and tribal authority. The fall of the Western Roman Empire. In 476 CE, the deposition of Romulus Augustulus, the last Western Roman emperor, by Odoacer, a Germanic leader, marked the symbolic end of the Western Roman Empire. Germanic tribes established their own kingdoms within former Roman territories, blending Roman administrative practices with their own tribal governance. 4. Cultural synthesis. The prolonged interaction between Romans and Germanic tribes created a fusion of traditions that became the foundation of medieval European civilization. Roman contributions. Roman law, governance, and Christianity were adopted by Germanic rulers, providing a unifying framework for the emerging kingdoms of medieval Europe. Roman infrastructure, such as roads and aqueducts, continued to serve as the backbone of European development. Germanic contributions. Germanic tribal customs, such as fealty and warrior loyalty, influenced the development of feudalism. The Germanic emphasis on personal bonds and local governance shaped the decentralized political structures of the medieval period.